probably already noticed this about me, but I am kind of a weirdo. One specific weird quirk of mine is I automatically rank everything I watch from worst to best. I've seen a lot of other YouTubers rank every MCU property, so I decided to do the same. This is totally not going to be controversial in any shape, form, or fashion. Bear in mind that this is just my opinion. It is not the correct one because there's no such thing as the correct opinion. I'm sure some of you watching will most definitely disagree with me on some stuff, but that's okay. Not even Calvin and I agree on everything. If you want a good example of this, check out our videos on Spiderman No Way Home. Links will be in the description. Also, I will not be including the Incredible Hulk, since that's the only MCU property I have not seen, and I don't really care about seeing it. But I have over 30 movies and TV shows to get through, so to keep this video from being over an hour long, I'm just gonna cut to the chase. In last place is a movie that I'm pretty sure is universally agreed to be a bad movie, and that is Thor: The Dark World. In my opinion, it's worse than simply being bad, because it definitely had potential, but all that potential was wasted. For instance, I think this movie could have been a really good Loki solo film that focused on him and his relationship with his mother, because to be honest, Loki is the only redeeming quality of this movie. The rest is just so agonizingly boring. A good example of this utter boringness is the final battle. Malekith had the Reality Stone, which means he could literally bend the fabric of reality however he wanted. He could legit turn Thor into a teacup if he wanted to. But what does he do with it? Throws Thor around a bit. Next is What If. Now, bear in mind, I have not watched all of the episodes of What If, and the ones that I haven't watched are generally agreed to be the better ones. But my problem with the ones I have seen is the massive downgrade in writing quality when transitioning from live action to animation. Now, I have no problem with animated stuff. In my experience, I found animation can be just as deep and captivating, compelling, and capable of telling complex stories as live action. A very good example of this is Star Wars: The Clone Wars. But the makers of What If must have thought they needed to dumb down the writing just because their target audience is younger, and I absolutely hate that. Kids are smart, and you treat them as such. Also, the MCU prides itself in its continuity and the interconnectivity of all its movies, but there are several glaring plot holes in What If that seem way below them and can only be explained by lazy writing. In 31st place is Iron Man 3. I watched this movie a few months ago for the first time since it came out in theaters, and I was surprised to find it not as bad as I remembered. My major complaint is it really doesn't exactly contribute any to the rest of the MCU. Like, it's very disconnected from everything else. You could completely remove the movie and it wouldn't change the overall trajectory or plot of the MCU in any shape, form, or fashion. Also, the villains are like super stupid. In 30th place is Iron Man 2. Although it's a little better than its sequel, this is still really boring. I mean, I guess seeing War Machine and Black Widow for the first time is pretty poggers, but in hindsight, they're kind of the boringest Avengers now, and seeing them isn't as cool as it was in 2010. In 29th place is Thor. Now, this was the movie that introduced us to Tom Hiddleston's Loki, so I do get points for that, but it is severely lacking in humor and takes itself way too seriously for being about a magical space Viking who converses the universe on a rainbow. Seriously, Marvel, just embrace the weirdness! Also, I'm not a too big fan of Jane's and Thor's relationship. In 28th place is Falcon and the Winter Soldier / Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Not to be confused with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Just that title alone makes me have a grudge against the show. Like, I understand why they made the title change at the end, because Sam's whole arc was about becoming Captain America. But why? Why did they keep the Winter Soldier in the title? Bucky's whole arc was about not being the Winter Soldier. But apart from that minor nitpick, the show is still very poorly written, and several plot points don't flow together all too well. It tries to make us feel sympathetically towards the villain, Carly Morgenthau. Morgenthau? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry, but I just can't. She is literally the dictionary definition of a terrorist. So Sam's big climatic speech at the end kind of falls flat. Also, this show has the Iron Man 3 problem of hardly contributing to the MCU, so therefore kind of feeling pointless. Like we saw Captain America give the shoe to Sam at the end of Endgame. If in Avengers 5, Sam comes up wearing a Captain America suit, no one would have questioned it. We don't need the story that happens off screen. But I did think the Isaiah Bradley bit was pretty good, and Wyatt Russell did a phenomenal job at making us utterly loathe the character of John Walker. In 27th place is Iron Man. This is probably the first controversial ranking, since a lot of people really like Iron Man. I just don't really think it's that great of a movie. Yes, it's good, just not great. I personally think Robert Downey Jr. does better in team-up movies, such as The Avengers or Civil War, so I'm not too big fan of his solo films. In 26th place is Hawkeye. What I like about the show is it's about ordinary people and their relationships with each other. It also does a great job at showing the wear and tear that superheroing does to a person. And can I say that Echo is just an awesome villain? It's so good to finally see this level of disabled representation in the MCU. But the show is pretty slow paced and kind of anticlimactic. 25th is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This was an enjoyable movie. It just really suffered from bad writing. If you want to see my more in-depth review of it, you can watch it in my video with the link in the description. 24th, Captain America: The First Avenger. It's a pretty good movie. Gold star, Marvel. 23rd is Spiderman: Far From Home. This was just a really enjoyable, fun movie. Sure, the Mysterio reveal was obvious, and his plan really doesn't make much sense when you think about it, but he was still a really fun character. A lot of people complain that Peter Parker in this movie relies too much on Stark technology and isn't as down to earth as he is in the comics. Although I mostly agree with that critique, come on! It's a story about a teenage kid with spider powers fighting a fishbowl magician. How down to earth can you possibly get? 22nd is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Yay! Another controversial ranking. Now, I just want to say that I think this is absolutely a fantastic movie. It has very, very few major flaws. So why is it ranked so low? Well, personally, I'm just not a very big fan of spy thriller-esque movies. This ranking has more to do with my personal taste than the quality of the movie. For instance, I do really genuinely like Bucky's and Steve's relationship and dynamic. 21, Captain Marvel. This was a really fun movie, and I honestly don't know what else to say about it apart from that. Number 20, Black Widow. I love this movie despite its many flaws, and had it come out after Civil War like it should have, I would have ranked it much higher. But since it came out after Black Widow had already died and completed her arc, it was really hard for me to get into the story or her character. Also, the villain was super dumb. Like, I imagine in the writer's room, someone's like, "It's 20 minutes before we start filming, and we still haven't figured out how the villain's hideout stays hidden." And then another person's like, it's hidden in the clouds? 19, Eternals. A lot of people regard this as one of the worst MCU movies, and I just don't really see that. It's flawed, yes, but it's far from the worst. Like, I think it's visually beautiful and stunning, and I really dig the characters. I really wish Marvel would have made this a TV show instead of a movie, since it does feel kind of rushed, and I wish they devoted more time to the character development. However, as with Hawkeye, I applaud them for great disabled representation and for having a superhero team that has just as many female members as male members.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
18. Shang-Chi. Callum described this movie as one of the most average movies he's ever seen. And I agree with that. 17, Moon Knight. Now this is the part where Callum will disagree with me, because he regards it as one of the best MCU properties. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic show, and like everything beyond this point is like a 5-star property. My only real complaint with it is that there are moments when it's so chaotic that's a little hard to follow. As with Multiverse of Madness, if you want to see a more in-depth review of it, a link will be in the description. 16, Spider-Man Homecoming. I loved this movie, and I love it even more after No Way Home. It is cast perfectly. Tom Holland is, in my opinion, the best Spider-Man, and Michael Keaton just did a phenomenal job as Vulture, and it captures the goofy, awkward high school aesthetic of Spider-Man just absolutely perfectly. 15, Doctor Strange. This brought a creativity and visual beauty to the MCU that is really hard to match, and I think the fight scenes are some of the best in the entire franchise. 14, Avengers Infinity War. I've seen a lot of people say that this is the best Marvel movie, but it's not. It's not even the best Avengers movie. And I'm sorry, but Thanos is not a very good or well-developed villain. Like, dude, just double all the resources. Just because a villain has more than one layer of depth or character development, or just because they aren't pure evil and have the universe's best interests at heart, doesn't make them a well-developed villain. I'm sorry, but Thanos is an uncreative idiot who threw his daughter off a freaking cliff. And it was really hard to feel any emotion whatsoever apart from annoyance when Disney killed off half of its multi-million-dollar Marvel franchises. Like, seriously, did anyone really think they were dead for good? I actually seriously considered putting this lower on my list, but I do genuinely think it has some of the best character moments and interactions in the entire MCU, which is why I put it where it's at. 13 and 12, the two Ant-Man movies. I love them, they're hilarious, and Paul Rudd is one of the most lovable immortal beings ever, right up there with Jimmy Carter. Watching these movies is just a really enjoyable, fun time. 11, Black Panther. What it lacks in humor, it makes up for in just sheer awesomeness. In my opinion, Killmonger is the best villain in the entire MCU, and Chadwick Boseman was perfectly cast as T'Challa. May he rest in peace. And coming into our top 10, we have Captain America Civil War. Okay, so this movie... So yeah, it's pretty darn awesome. Number 9, Avengers Age of Ultron. A lot of people seem to not like this movie or have it ranked low, and I just don't really understand that. This movie is poggers. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from this movie. The city's flying, we're being attacked by an army of robots, and I've got a bow and arrow. Nothing makes sense. Also, Ultron is one of the most relatable villains of all time. My dude looked at the internet for 5 minutes and decided that humanity must die. How is it not relatable? Number 8, Loki. I have kind of mixed feelings about this one, because if you look at it within a vacuum separated from the rest of the MCU, it's one of my all-time favorite MCU properties. But if you look at it in context of the rest of the MCU, it really starts to suffer. This is because it kind of craps on the multiverse logic established by every other MCU property. Because it is in so much conflict with the rest of the MCU, I actually seriously consider bumping this down to like 14th place. But because it's just so gosh darn enjoyable to watch, despite all its plot holes and contradictions, I just had to put it at 8th. But my very favorite Marvel Studios TV show, and probably just one of my favorite TV shows just in general, is WandaVision. And yes, Carl, the ending is a little anticlimactic, and there are a few plot holes, but this show is poggers. As with Age of Ultron, one of my favorite quotes comes from this show. What is grief, if not love persevering? The entire show is an analogy for grief and overcoming loss, and that is just beautiful. Number 6, Avengers Endgame. I honestly don't have too much to say about this, other than it was epic. Like, that's the only word that really comes to mind when I think about it. Like, it was an epic conclusion to the Infinity Saga. The final battle? Epic. My appreciation for it has waned a bit since 2019. Like, it was an incredible theater experience, but rewatching it at home just doesn't really have the same feeling. And if I were to judge it on plot and story, it would definitely go like way lower. But since my personal appreciation of something has a big effect on my ranking, that I have it as high as it is because it is a very enjoyable movie. But just like Bob the Builder and Blue's Clues, the original is hands down the best. I saw this in theaters and it absolutely blew my 9-year-old brain. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Captain America from that one movie, and that's Iron Man and Thor from those other movies, and now they're all in the same movie. What sorcery is this? Now, admittedly, seeing a bunch of different characters from different movies all showing up in the same movies isn't as thrilling as it was in 2012, but this movie has still stood the test of time marvelously. In my opinion, it's just as good now as it was in 2012. And yes, Carl, I know in hindsight it doesn't really make sense why Thanos would give Loki the Mind Stone in return for the Space Stone. But first, as we established earlier, Thanos is an idiot who can't do simple math. And second, I don't care. Number 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I absolutely adore both of the Guardians movies. And at one point I even had this movie as high as number 2 on my list. But I eventually bumped it down to number 4 because I do admit it is kind of flawed. The villains aren't great, and the humor does kind of go overboard at times. It's still a magnificent movie. Seriously, if you didn't cry at this line,
he may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy,
then you are heartless. Number 3, Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is the most campy, absurd, and ridiculous movie ever, but in the best way possible. It fully embraces the fact that it's about a magical space Viking who travels the universe on a rainbow. Number 2, Spider-Man No Way Home. This movie had a really deep, profound, emotional impact on me, and those movies are always the best ones in my opinion. I am a Christian, and as weird as it sounds, it kind of really spoke towards my faith in a lot of ways. The central core and theme was about compassion and having forgiveness on people, even those who don't deserve it. And that is also the core and heart of the Christian faith. Spider-Man No Way Home did the best job at showing what it meant to be a hero and also showing the consequences of being a hero, and I just love it. If you've been keeping track, you would know that number 1 on this list is none other than Morbius. Just kidding, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie somehow made me care about a tree and a raccoon and their relationship with each other on a deeper level than I do for legit most Marvel characters. Also, they defeated the villain with a freaking dance-off. So yeah, this is easily number 1 for me. This movie gets a lot of criticism for the villain, Ronan, being a kind of weak villain, but I honestly think he's one of the more realistic villains. Because instead of having this overly complicated, dramatic plan, like, oh, I'm gonna get revenge on the people who murdered my parents with a traffic cone, he's just simply racist. That's the only motivation for most real-life villains. Also, just like Thor Ragnarok, Guardians of the Galaxy captures the aesthetic of a goofy, fun superhero comic book movie perfectly. Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Thor Ragnarok are the best MCU movies in my opinion because they represent what superhero movies should be. Guardians and Ragnarok in aesthetic and Spider-Man No Way Home in theme. But that is just my opinion, and I'd love to hear your opinions down in the comments. And if you want to see more weird nerdy crap like this, then subscribe to our channel. Marvel is a really common reoccurring topic on this channel. For instance, have you ever wanted to see 3 ADHD people sort the characters of Loki into Hogwarts houses? If so, a link will be in the description. Until next time.